The world is so scary now, I'd rather be at home. No place to go, so the kitchen's where I roam. Markets may fall, but that doesn't matter to me. Staying home with Jared, that's where I wanna be. And with Oliver.
Thanks everyone for joining today. Really excited at today's guest, Wren Wilder, who founded an amazing project called the Wilder Earth Movement. This is an exciting series that we're doing, Wren, to celebrate artists who are passionate about social change and social justice, especially during this crazy, crazy time that we're all in. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, really excited to have you on. So, and again, this series is hosted by a Show for Change and Movikarma, which we'll talk a bit about today. So we'd love to just start off, Ren, if you could tell us, first of all, how are you doing in the midst of all this craziness, and maybe just a little bit about your background as a creative and an artist.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm doing okay. You know, it's crazy. It's still really surreal that this is happening. Like every day I wake up and I'm like, is this really happening? Is this still a thing?
Yeah, exactly.
But just the way that it's evolving and the clarity that we don't have about the situation, it's just that part's really tough, obviously. But, you know, I'm getting through it and just trying to make the most of it like everybody else, you know, trying to stay educated. I my background as an artist and a creative person, and also why I do the things that I do with the Wilder Earth movement is I come from a family that did a lot of like hiking and camping and backpacking. And while we were growing up, we'd always plan these really like deep hiking trips, but even though we couldn't bring anything with us, we always had instruments every time. So we'd, you know, my dad and my mom and all of their friends would take these long extended, you know, canoeing trips or biking trips, and we'd have like a backpack of our clothes, guitars, and we every night was just a huge concert in the middle of the forest, you know. So I kind of grew up, you know, connecting the two, music and nature. So it's become a really strong part of who I am and why, you know, I want to give back to the environment as well. So yeah, that's kind of how this came to be.
And did I see you're from Northern New Jersey, and Manhattan? So I think we share some of that background. So I'm from Manhattan and New Jersey as well, like South Brunswick area, and then Roosevelt Island on the Manhattan side. So I was excited to see that. Are you out camping in like the Poconos? Was this in New York? Was this somewhere else?
It was more like the Potomac River, like along the Appalachian Trail from north to south, because my whole family has hiked the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, wow.
Like my dad hiked it from Georgia to Maine, and it's always been my dream to go and hike the trail.
Yeah, you should definitely do that when we can hike, when we're allowed to hike again, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It might take some training, but
yeah, exactly. With your mask on. That's awesome. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you're using storytelling to drive change. I listened to some of your music. It's super, super awesome. If folks who are watching this have not listened to it, it's great. And I think we'll give you a little bit of peace and warmth in this time. But I'd love to hear how maybe you're using storytelling specifically through music to raise awareness or drive change about the environment or otherwise.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I've been thinking about it, but so my music isn't about the environment. Like my music has a lot of social change themes, like basically just like, you know, getting out of a bad relationship or finding your voice or just being inspired or believing in yourself. Just themes of freedom, really. But where I try to trigger my environmental change is with my audience. So every show that we host, every person that comes to the show, we plant a tree in their honor. So that way we're kind of getting people to come out and be together. And we always say something on stage about the environment and like what this money is going to do. but it's all part of, you know, the bigger picture, which is you can kind of split the two while having both social and environmental change. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of, yeah, you don't have to sing about trees to support
right. Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's I don't know if you find this, but it's more effective to not do, you know, always hit people on the head with it, but really like incorporate it in your art.
Yeah, because it's just part of being an artist. Whatever art you make just comes naturally and organically. It doesn't necessarily have to be forced, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Tell folks a little more about the Wilder Earth movement. I know you've alluded to it a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about why you started it. It sounds like connected to your childhood, which is great.
Yeah.
Love to hear why you started it, why, and like what its core mission is right now.
So the night that we founded the Wilder Earth movement was the night that I found out that the Amazon rainforest was on fire. So that was really horrible in every way. I was actually about to walk onto stage during this huge show at the Study in Hollywood. And I was about to walk on stage and somebody told me, and I just like had to take a minute. And then I looked at my friend that I was sitting with and I was like, there's like something we can do. Like we have to do something. We can't just pretend that everything's fine, because it's not. Totally. So that was the night that the Wilder Earth movement came to be. I just said, everybody that came tonight, we're going to plant a tree for you.
That's so cool.
And we did. And we've planted 250 trees since then. And I think that was last November.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, right now we're planting trees through this organization. They're called One Tree Planted, and they're awesome. I'm actually a tree ambassador with them now.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. So every dollar that you donate, you get to pick where they plant the trees. And the great part about this organization is that they're always planting trees indigenous to the area.
Oh,
so nice. I don't know if you've heard anything about like them planting these like cocoa trees in the Amazon, and they have basically, it looks like farms of trees that they're planting. Yeah. But just by like supporting an organization that actually supports the indigenous culture and environment, just it supports so much more, because everything is connected, the animals to the nature, you know, so it's really important to keep it the way that it is, you know,
connected. So do you get to see like photos of your trees as they grow up, or like
no, that's a good idea though. I need to reach out to them. I think that'd be such a nightmare for them to keep track of.
Yeah, exactly. It's more work. Okay, maybe not do that. Because they're kind of your kids, I guess, at this point. But
I do have a little certificate though.
That's really good. So you have like 250 or just one for this.
Exactly.
That's super cool. And so are you trying then, as part of that effort, to shift the incentive structure around, because I know, for example, in the Amazon, there was a lot of talk of why people were cutting down trees, and obviously a lot of economic reasons and kind of where people's incentives are economically. Like, do you feel like this is an effort to kind of shift, you know, people's, especially in places where indigenous cultures are at risk, or there are more subsistence farmers? Are you working to sort of shift that?
I hope so. I mean, I think that they do a lot of work in that area as well, but I really hope so. I think it's just so important. Culture is so important. Like, I know that just because my mom's from Egypt, you know, a country that's you don't normally have a parent from. And if she taught me anything growing up, it's that culture is so important. I mean, we ate Egyptian food this morning for breakfast, you know, we keep it super authentic. And I think it's really important for everybody to have that, because it's just part of who you are, you know, at your core. And it'd be so boring if we were all the same.
I know, it would be. It would literally be terrible.
It'd be horrible.
How has your Egyptian heritage then informed this work? Because it sounds like that may have influenced what you care about and the work you do.
You know, I'm sure it has on the subconscious level, just from the way that the upbringing is. I mean, family is so important, and I mean, right now during quarantine, I'm here in California, but my whole Egyptian family is living in one roof right now.
Wow.
They all
Wow.
got together, and there's like 6 or 7 of them just living under one.
Wow. It's tight quarters.
It's tight quarters, and just
Yeah.
I think that upbringing of just like loving one another, and you know, my mom was an immigrant here, so just making the most out of your life.
Mm-hmm.
We only have one. I say this all the time, but if there's a pill I could take to live forever, I would. In a
Yeah, me
sense.
too. Yeah, me too.
Life is so short and it's so beautiful, and there's no reason to not take full advantage of it every second.
Right, and I think we're
You know?
reminded of that more even now, right? With what's going on, which brings me to our next question, which was, I'd love to hear. We've been talking to a lot of creatives, writers, directors, actors, the last couple of weeks about how this moment with COVID-19 has influenced their work, or they're just even their frame of mind. Because as artists, and I'm sure for you as a musician, connection with people in person is generally how we get strength and perform, and with audiences directly. Like, how have you been managing that, and how has your work changed creatively, if at all, during this crisis?
Well, you know, it has been hard. We were in the middle of recording a single.
Oh.
So
yeah.
Sometimes when you're recording music, there's changes that have to be made. You know, you record something and then your baby just starts to grow, and you have to change things and sort of, you know, move with it. But as this song was starting to grow and change, we couldn't go back in the studio to like record it on piano instead of ukulele or whatever it was that we were trying to switch. But you know, we made it work, and honestly, I've been collaborating so much more because of it. So what we ended up doing is, instead of going in and just doing it ourselves, we reached out to all of these session players that are at home and like need support right now because they're not able to go and work. And we're able to reach out to them and just have them play their parts at home, record them, and send them to my producer. So,
oh, wow.
You know, we've ended up working with a lot more people than I thought we were going to on this song.
That's interesting.
It's great. But the way that it's changed my Wilder Earth movement work is, we were supposed to go out and plant trees on March 21st for Arbor Day. And we were going to have like a whole team of us go out to Santa Monica to plant trees. So that got canceled, obviously. But hopefully we reschedule it.
Yeah, I hope you do. So that kind of in-person physical work obviously kind of needs to be on hold.
Yeah, for sure. And it's good that we're doing that, because I think it's really important that everybody just stays inside right now.
Yeah, I agree. But that's interesting that this moment kind of opened up new, maybe creative possibilities for you through your music, at least. Yeah,
for sure. And also just the opportunities that have been rising out of nowhere, you know, like social media is always a strong platform for us as musicians, but because we can't do anything else, it's just exploded. Like, I don't know if like you go on Instagram.
Yeah, I've seen the Together at Home stuff on there. I've seen a lot of the work stuff.
Yeah. So there's all these series, but also like all of our favorite musicians are finally logging on every day and playing a show for us.
Right,
So
that's true.
That part's pretty cool.
Yeah,
like I'll be live streaming and I'll get a notification, Rufus Wainwright is now live streaming. I'm like, okay, gotta go, you guys.
Gotta go watch someone else. Really. Yeah.
I gotta go watch one of my heroes perform. Bye.
Which otherwise would probably never happen. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, barely did I ever see the artists that I love on social media, because they're just, I know, you know, they're not really big social media users, you know.
Yeah, right.
But now they're there.
Yeah, it was crazy to see Chris Martin's of Coldplay's like his live, because he was so nervous during it, and you just tell him he like never does this. He didn't know how to use Instagram, and
that is so true. That is so true. I've seen a lot of that too, where I'm like, oh, You're just sitting in your bathrobe there.
Yeah, like you've never done this before.
It's great.
And is that something you've been doing? Like, so you sounds like you're
Yeah.
doing some live streaming.
I've been trying as much as possible to just get on the live stream and play. I mean, I do it a lot to begin with, when we're not quarantined, but I've definitely been trying more. I try to log on at 6 p.m. whenever I can. Sometimes I'm working from home, so I can't, but yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's good to keep that. And also structure and routine going.
Yeah, we're trying to book like a live stream festival. There's a lot of them happening right now. So we're trying to book one of those. Hopefully we do, because then we could donate some more trees.
Yeah, we do. More trees, more trees planted.
Yeah.
That was related to one of the questions I had, which was
Sure.
words of wisdom, if any, that you might have for people to stay creative or at peace during this time. You know, what do you think would be helpful for people? What's been helpful for you?
You know, I think that the biggest advice that I can give, just from being someone that's working from home too, is don't stay in a routine. You know, like the way to feel like you're trapped in a cage is if you just keep living your life like it's Groundhog Day over and over again during this quarantine. It's a really stressful time. And what's helped me like get out of that routine is to, you know, I've been finding that I'm accidentally like regressing into my inner child a lot.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I've been, you know, when I was growing up, it was just like go to the piano, play as long as you want for like 4 hours, and something would happen. And then you could just go and read a book. Nobody's bothering you about anything. Like, and then we've also been playing a lot of Donkey Kong, obviously.
Well, that has to happen. Yeah, that's required, actually. Yeah.
So I think just like allowing yourself to be that person again is just so, now's the time. What else are you going to do? You know?
Yeah, just being like discovering things again, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That we
And
can have
rediscovering who you are, like without the world as it is today. It's so much more than it used to be, so much more work to exist. So
I agree.
Taking a step back and just learning how to like let go of that for a minute.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're both old enough to remember before there were like constantly phones in our hands and like, you know, constantly computers in our faces.
Yeah, totally.
So to get back to that a little bit is great. What is the pandemic taught you, if anything, about creativity or art or yourself?
I think the biggest thing that it's taught me is how fast the earth has transformed back. It's just like, I can't believe it. We can see the Himalayas. Dolphins are swimming in the Venice canals.
I saw that.
And LA is one of the leaders in clean air quality right now.
That's insane.
Yeah,
wow.
They're top 4
wow. That's
in the world.
Shift.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just, I remember moving here. You probably had the same experience moving from the East Coast, but just coming here and breathing, but not feeling like you're taking like a full breath unless you go to Big Bear. So just that feeling of like clean, crisp air, and just the fact that our earth can heal so quickly, and what happens when we do that, you know? So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned. I did not think it was going to happen this quickly, to be honest.
Yeah, in some ways it's maybe a sign of hope, right? That you can have that healing so quickly, that earth and life kind of rebounds. With the dolphins is a great example. It took them like, what, 2 weeks? They're just back.
It's crazy. Yeah, you're totally right.
That's super good. So maybe this is a lesson for the future. Hopefully we can heed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What other charity, beyond your own charitable work, what other charity or organization is close to your heart that you think people should support right now, or just in general?
Sure. So I mentioned One Tree Planted. They're a great organization, but besides tree planting, because I think other things are important too, I am a really big supporter of learning more about what's called bioacoustics, because my background, like the job that I do besides music, I'm a sound designer.
Mm.
So I make sounds and I mix sound for film and television. And one of the things that I learned that interests me is bioacoustics. And I learned it from this guy. His name is Bernie Krause, and he's a sound designer that records landscape sound or soundscapes. And basically what he does is he uses sound to do research on environmental changes over the course of years, and how, and overall, like what he's studying is how we end up impacting the environment.
Yeah.
And it's just to prove that everything is connected. So that interest and really influenced me for years. And then I saw this documentary called Sonic Sea on Hulu. And it goes into how our sounds in the ocean impact the wildlife down there. So getting more and more into that world, the NRDC and the IFAW, those are two really powerful organizations. The NRDC is more like fighting for the environment, whereas the IFAW is like fighting for the animal welfare. So those are two organizations that I think are really important. And if you haven't seen Sonic Sea, like go watch that documentary. Just become educated with how it's funny, because sound isn't something you think of hurting animals.
Yeah.
And when I got that, I got it. I was like, oh no, of course, because they're so much more sensitive than we are when it comes to sound.
So true. Yeah, I went vegan like, a long time ago, like 20 plus years ago, and I didn't think about that piece of it until relatively recently. And bioacoustics is such it's such a fascinating field.
It's so incredibly fascinating. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe Bernie's work who you mentioned around who I'm pretty sure it was him who I heard an interview with, because he was talking about there's so few quiet places in the United States that don't have that noise pollution. And I think one of them is in Washington State in the national park there. And there's very few places.
Wow.
It just shows you how.
Yeah, I would love to eventually do some work. I was just on their website earlier, and I was seeing that they have some opportunities, but eventually you're going to see me like holding a microphone in the middle of the park. There she is. Wren is like a little bird in the tree now.
That's funny. And your name is Wren, so you're thinking from a bird's perspective, maybe. Like,
Always.
Yeah. I love that. And it's interesting too now with like less amount of air travel, right? Less driving. That we could take some lessons perhaps from the silence maybe that we have a little more. Yeah,
I've been actually trying to pay attention to that, just living in Burbank and having that noise pollution, but it sounds a little quieter. There's still planes taking off at the airport.
Same here in Long Beach. Yeah.
I don't know where they're going.
I'm just like,
I think they're actually just keeping their routes. So
yeah, and there are cargo planes. There's cargo planes.
Oh, that's true.
That are still flying. But what is a song or project that's most important to you? I know a bunch of songs. I don't know if you want to pick one, but
well, I guess they're all my babies. I can't pick. And the one that I'm working on at the time is always the one that's the most important, because, and I call them my problem child. Like whatever song I'm working on is my problem child. But right now I am working on this song. It's called 499. And it's a song that's about the simplicities in life and being able to be happy with just that, which is very relevant to I guess the time we're living in. I wrote it in the winter, not knowing this was going to happen.
It's funny.
But yeah, it's and it's also about, like, if you take a look at your life and you're not happy, having the strength to do whatever it is to make that change. Like, you can do it all by yourself, no matter what, and just giving people power where they don't have it. And so that project is probably the one that's most important. But my album that's released last October is definitely like my biggest work that I've made and most reflective of like my new voice and my new sound and, you know, just finding my voice and my sound really. Like that whole experience was huge for me as an artist. So yeah.
That's super cool. It's kind of be more feel fully formed as an artist. So that's a pretty cool feeling.
And being okay with having like a nostalgic vintage sound. You know, that part for me is a little difficult because I have a lot of people around me that are making music that's so new sounding. And I get compared to that a lot, actually. Like when I submit my music for anything, it's always like, oh, well, it wasn't produced this way. And I'm like, yeah, well, it wasn't really produced that way back then.
Right. Like why would we use the modern tech with like, exactly.
So yeah, so that part makes my album that much more special to me because it's being able to be like, I'm okay with that. Like, this is who I am. So
yeah, laying that bare, I feel like it's as a filmmaker, it's something that I think we all struggle with, right? It's like when you finally lay yourself bare, you know that you may get just lots of rejection, but then, you know, you kind of just accept that, right? And it feels good to be you. And then lastly, like, just love to hear more about your creative process, and particularly someone who seems to be pretty conscious of social change, environmental change. Like, what advice might you give someone who's starting out as an artist and cares about, you know, certain issues in the world?
Well, advice-wise, I mean, if you're already thinking about that, you're already doing it. Like the fact that that's on your mind as an artist, you're already like halfway there because that's the big part of it is really just finding what's important to you. And that's the advice that I have is like, make sure that the thing that you're trying to help change in this world is something that you really are passionate about, because it takes a lot of work and people can tell when you're fully committed and fully authentically passionate about what you do. So I think that's the biggest advice. And as far as my creative process goes, I whenever I'm writing a song or creating anything really, I go into like this other dimension of life and I have to literally push record on my voice memos on my phone before I start playing anything, because then I start tuning out and I just start singing and playing and I find cool things and I run with it and words come out and I will not remember any of it if I don't record it on my phone.
That's so interesting.
So a lot of the songs I write, they're just like, bleh. And they turn out okay, so it's fine. I keep doing it that way.
That's so funny. Do you go back and then kind of have to reorganize and restructure sometimes?
Yeah, there's a lot of like backwards notebook writing that eventually this page goes on this page. I take a lot of different pieces from different things and end up putting them together and making them make sense. Otherwise, it would just sound like a crazy dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just shows too that, you know, everyone has their process and everyone has creativity inside them, right? And I think goes back to your earlier point about now is a great time to discover that, you know.
Absolutely.
Because we've all had friends, I mean, at least I have, who said, you know, I don't read, I don't read books, I don't write, like, I don't play music, but you can discover that, right? So it's
absolutely cool. Nobody doesn't do anything, you know, you aren't just one version of yourself. And how are you ever going to find out what you're capable of loving if you don't try it? So
1,000%, yeah, 1,000%. And then lastly, where can folks, you know, what should folks look out for in terms of, you know, I know you have a new single you're working on. Where can they find your album? Where can they find your stuff?
So if you want to know more about the Wilder Earth movement and my music, I suggest going to www.wrenwilder.com. My name is spelled W-R-E-N.
Okay.
And yeah, just go to wrenwilder.com. All of my music is there. It's also streaming on all major platforms. I have a YouTube page that has a music video on it. And we will be releasing a single to be determined because of COVID-19.
Right.
Brought to you by COVID-19.
Right.
And yeah, just go to my website and you'll see all the information you need. It's all there.
Love it. Thanks, Wren. And thanks for being part of this series where we're kicking off with artists and change makers who are doing cool stuff through their art. And it's just been super exciting to
Thank
talk
you
to you
so
today.
much for having me. This is so incredible. I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Same here.
Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
All right.